I just want to expand on my previous video about Richard Tice and his jolly jaunt to the Ukraine. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm getting a bit of heat because I've dared to criticise Reform and Tice, and there are people arguing there's no other alternative to the Tories and Labour. But that's not entirely true, because there are other smaller, much smaller right-wing political parties, but they're too small to make a difference. They're not as mainstream as Reform. Now, I've been hopping on and off the fence regarding Reform for a while. And the reason I did finally endorse them is because Reform are the biggest of the right-wing parties to possibly replace the Tories and Labour. I know they wouldn't get a massive, whopping, great big majority and wipe the floor with the other two parties immediately. That's going to take time. And there is, or there was, maybe a chance they could at least make it to opposition. But for me personally, Richard Tice he lets me down each and every time. That time he praised Zelensky, that set off alarm bells for me. And then there was him and I think he was his previous number 2, Dr. David Bull. They were talking about the jab and how it should be mandatory for healthcare workers. And then I found out about his thing with Isabella Oakeshott, where one minute she's friends with all the Tories like Matt Hancock, etc., and the next she's stabbing them in the back. And now this. He buggered off to the Ukraine to deliver medical supplies and other stuff. Well, for a guy who is constantly on GB News and other places saying we must put our country first, he's just going back on his word, isn't he? How many British homeless do we have here? British veterans who are living on the streets. They urgently need medical care and help with sorting out their lives, as well as British citizens who are homeless. But no, he has to make a point of going to the Ukraine, and he has to make a point of saying he's delivered all this stuff there, and made a point of putting it on Twitter with a selfie of himself with a huge cheesy grin on his face underneath a Ukrainian billboard. And so I have to ask myself, is this the kind of guy I want to lead a party that represents me? Is this the kind of guy I want to be the next Prime Minister? No, quite frankly. And look at where he comes from. He was privately educated. He went to Uppingham School. He is a multi-millionaire businessman. He can't pronounce house. He pronounces it as heis. And he's your classic establishment stooge. All right, he says the right things, but don't they all? So please tell me, why the hell should I vote for a guy who would be a Tory light? So I'm not going to vote for any old rubbish just because I want to teach the Tories a lesson. I deserve better. We deserve better. And I don't think now Richard Tice deserves our vote. So prove me wrong in the comments. And that's that. I'm Paz49. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, Roger Trout.